Welcome to another Mixed Media Tuesday, and today I'm working on my 6x6 watercolor paper journal. I still have a couple of pages to finish it off, so for today I'm starting my inspiration from the latest collection by Stamperia, just like I do every month with a new collection. However, keep in mind that you can easily recreate what I'm doing with what you have. So I just get inspired by the colors at this stage, and you can see I have already shared a couple of mini art journal projects as a short. So let's now focus on how I'm going to put together my background. I'm going to start with paste. I'm using here Crackle Paste, and I will mix a couple of stencils. You can definitely use any paste that you have. So I am using a lovely tapestry pattern that is really gorgeous, and I haven't even really cleaned it up as you can see, but forget about that. Let's say that it is completely clean. I will actually transfer a little bit of that pink on my page, but it doesn't really matter. I will cover everything with acrylic paint later on. So at this stage I don't know the focal points, I don't know where and what I'm going to do on top. I'm just having fun with the stencils. These are new stencils and I wanted to combine them. So you see I'm going to mix the design of one stencil with some text from the other stencil. Again, I'm using Crackle Paste just because that's the paste that I had on my table at that moment. It doesn't really matter the color of the paste for what I will do later on. Again, really randomly, just apply everything here and there, and I'm going to let this dry. You can let it air dry or you can use your heat gun. It really depends on what you want to do. I'm going to wash the stencils, and by the time I'm back, this is pretty much dry. So for the next step, I want to play with the rice papers from this collection. You can use any rice paper or pattern paper that you have at home for this step. And I decided to go with this one. Absolutely love all the different areas that you can play with. I'm just going to tear off a few bits and pieces from this rice paper so that I can stick it on my background. Again, I'm using products from the latest collection by Stamperia, but keep in mind that I'm trying to show you the steps in a way that you can easily recreate them with what you have. So here I'm using rice paper. You can use any rice paper that you have. You can use any thin pattern paper that you have. What I'm going to do is to just tear off designs from here and there and stick them down. You can cut them with your scissors or just have that lovely frayed edge if you just tear it with your fingers. So for this example here, I'm just combining both techniques so that I can get some interesting edges here and there. Notice that I made sure that I cut out two different colors of the rice paper, so one that is more bluish and another one that is more brown, to give more interest on my background. And now it's time to stick it down. Depending on what you are going to stick down, whether it is paper, whether it is rice paper or tissue paper, whatever, choose the right glue. Here I'm using my rice paper glue. It's my trusty glue. I like to use it on my art journals. It doesn't smell. It's very easy to apply, and I use it as a sealer on top of my rice paper as well, as you can see. Now, notice that I don't care if I stick the rice paper over the embossed areas, the areas where I have the paste. It really doesn't matter at this stage, and you will see later on how I'm going to bring all that texture into life. So for now I'm just sticking down, I'm sealing on top with rice paper, glue, and I'm just trying to mix the colors, as you can see, brown and bluish together, and creating some cluster areas here and there. For the next step, you need to look at your acrylic paints, just choose a few colors. I decided to go with this Patina Texture set because I find that the colors match perfectly with what I already have on my page. So I'm going to go with these Patina colors and I'm going to make a mess. You are probably going to freak out because this is going to look super ugly, but trust the process. Just use a color to cover up all the white areas without overthinking. Go a little bit over the pieces that you have already stuck down, and then go ahead and add a second color. I am going to do the mixing directly on top of my page. And again, I'm going over some of the areas that I have stick down with the rice paper. And you can see this is looking super ugly, but don't freak out. That's the beauty of playing layer after layer and trying to bring things together. I super enjoy this process, especially when it turns looking so ugly that you don't know where this is actually taking you. And that's the truth with this page. At this stage, I didn't know how I'm going to bring it together, but I so enjoy it when I go outside of my comfort zone and try to find the different mediums and techniques to bring everything together. So anyway, I'm making sure that this layer is completely dry, and then I'm going to add a little bit of that copper paint. Now this copper paint matches perfectly with the rice paper that I have. And I am going to apply it with a very thick brush. This is dry and thick, and I want to see the brush strokes. As I apply the copper paint over it, you are going to see that I kind of bring that dimension that I have from the stenciling into life. And I really don't have a plan here, I just want to have that shine here and there of the copper. Plus it matches perfectly with the rice paper, and I feel like it's already coming together. I do have some extra paint on my glass mat, so I added some water. I'm going to dilute it very nicely, and then with a brush I'm going to add some splattering here and there. Splatters always help. They are magical when you are trying to bring things together. So now I'm going to make sure that this is completely dry, and let's move on to another step. I have also zoomed in for you so you can see how the page is looking at the moment. Now this is completely dry, and you can grab a buffer or sanding block, whatever you have, and you can go over what we have. This is going to bring all that texture of the paste into life. So I'm just going to do that, and you can do it as much as you like depending on how much you want that background texture to come in to the foreground. This is going to look white, and it is sanding only the raised areas of the acrylic paint. So it kind of brings what we already used, the designs from the stencils. So now here is how it's looking at the moment. And I'm moving on to the next step. This is a step that I always like to do on my art journal pages. I like to have kind of a darker edge. These kind of frames what I have created, it makes it look more finished. So here I'm using black dye ink with my blending tool and just going all around. It gives that look of a vignette with a darker shade all around. You can definitely make that darker border even coming towards the center if you want. I just stayed a little bit only on the edge, but you can bring it towards the center as much as you like. Now, next step, I'm going to do some stamping. I'm using the Venice stamp set, but I chose the two stamps, the circle one and the text one, which you probably all have, and I'm going to do some stamping. Here I'm using black permanent ink in case I decide to do any other technique on top and I don't want to have any smudges or smearing of that ink. Now I'm going to stamp here and there completely randomly. I'm not using a stamping block because I don't want to have the perfect rectangle of that text. I want it to look more organic. And I'm creating kind of clusters here and there. And now I am also going to bring in the other circle stamp just to introduce a different shape. I mainly look at them as a visual texture, so I don't really care if even if the stamp is upside down. Now I'm super happy with how the background is looking, and now it's time to add a focal point. Now, of course, for my focal points, I'm going to play with images from the new Venice collection, but up to now you could have recreated this background with what you have, and then just grab a pattern paper or a few images to add the focal points that you want. So here I'm just going to use a die that gives you that film strip, and I'm playing with what I have from this pattern paper, trying to decide which areas I want to cut out. So I decided to go with this page, and I'm cutting out the film strip die out of black cardstock, and then I'm going to use bits and pieces from these two images. So you see here how I try to combine images from here and there. I'm just securing everything with some scotch tape, and I'm going to run it through my die cutting machine. By the way, this is the die, the Stamperia dies are white. So I do have now the film strip along with the two images, and I can put them together directly on top of my page. However, look how empty it looks. I need to add something extra to make it look more interesting without over covering what I have underneath. So that's why I like to use cheesecloth. It always adds some extra texture, and it is semi-transparent plus white, so it doesn't turn any page into looking more busy than it already is. I'm going to fray the edges and then stick it down. For that I like to use my craft glue, and it's going to hold the cheesecloth down as well as the composition on top of it. So here is the film strip which I'm going to stick on top. Again, I'm using my craft glue. And again, try to think outside of the box. Just because I'm using this focal point doesn't mean that you need to have it as well. What you can do is try to recreate what I did for the background. Just follow the same steps with your favorite stencils, combine a couple of stencils with the paste that you already have and with the acrylic colors that you love. This way you will end up having a lovely background, and you can stick on top just anything, just stick a butterfly. Now what I'm doing here is adding a little bit of a bronze patina so that I kind of make that film strip come together with the background, since I do have copper acrylic paint back there, and at the same time it doesn't look as clean and just black as it was when I cut it out. So it's always in the details on how you can bring all those elements together. Now, by the way, just below in the description, just like always, I'm going to link to everything I'm using for this project. You will find there links to shops in the USA, in the UK, as well as in Europe, so I hope this is helpful. Now these are the paper cutouts from the same collection, and what I'm doing is choosing some pieces so that I can make that film strip look more interesting. I want to be able to tuck things behind to make it look more like a composition, while at the same time I don't want to overwhelm the page. So most of them are going to just peek behind the film strip just to add some added interest. The part where you create the composition is really difficult because it's really difficult to know when to stop with all those elements that and the ephemera that you have on hand. You can just go overboard, and it's definitely what happens to me many times. Now I'm going to stick down my words. I always like to have some kind of a quote, motivational words. So here I decided to go with discover and explore. I usually like to outline the words with my white gel pen or a black pen. However, today I was just playing around with my Posca white marker. And I'm also going to add some highlights on other elements that I have added down. And as a finishing touch, I'm going to add some white paint. Now, I like to use this Winsor & Newton white calligraphy ink. I get a lot of questions about this one, so just white calligraphy ink. I think it's a really a way to go with white splatters. They stay always bright and white even on top of other mediums that react. So that's the page for today. I hope that you had fun, that you got inspired. Here are some close-up photos where you can see all the details better and you can see the texture of the paste even better, some close-ups. Links to everything I used are down below. Don't forget to leave me a comment as well as like the video, and thank you all for joining me.